Back in 2005, I've dealt with this before, the world got together at a United Nations summit and endorsed the principle of responsibility to protect. You'll remember that that's a principle which says that a sovereign nation has the responsibility to protect its citizens internally from war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and equally important, ethnic cleansing. Now, when you set up that kind of constellation, naturally there emerges a Center for Responsibility to Protect, and it publishes on a regular basis what it calls atrocity alerts. And in the last 48 hours, the most recent atrocity alert singled out the country of Burundi. Burundi, you ask? Yes, it's a landlocked East Central African country, roughly 10 to 11 million people, and comprising the two ethnic groups, Hutu and Tutsi, who were involved in the terrible genocide in Rwanda in 1994, and the counter-genocide, which I'll deal with in a future commentary. Now, the terrible conflict between Hutu and Tutsi ethnic groups continues within Burundi. And they're constantly at war with each other in a dreadful kind of fratricide within the country. And in 1972, the Tutsi, who controlled the military, unleashed a terrible assault against the Hutu. And in 1993, the Hutu, who were on the majority, unleashed an equivalent assault on the Tutsi. The historians say that roughly 200,000 died in each case and talk about it as a near genocide. And we've never been able internationally to quell the venom in that country. You can't imagine how hard people have tried to find a kind of mediated settlement. Julius Nyerere, the former president of Tanzania, was involved. So was Kofi Annan. So was Nelson Mandela. So was Bill Clinton. None of them were able to treat for peace. And as a result, things have been getting worse and worse, until in 2015, the current president, whose name I cannot pronounce, said, look, I want to rule for a third term, indeed forever. And just a week ago at a referendum, the Burundian people ostensibly supported an extension of his rule that could go to 2034. And prior to the referendum, there was terrible raping, murdering, detention. Over 1,000 people died. 10,000 were placed in detention. 500,000 fled into neighboring countries. It's just awful. And how does the president sustain all this? By the use of the Burundian military, a military which is given to savage brutality. And that military, believe it or not, also acts in part as peacekeeping forces for the United Nations in various countries and for the African Union in various countries. So how is it all sustained? Well, you see, the United Nations pays $1,300 a month per peacekeeper. In the African Union, they pay $880 a month for peacekeeper. That money goes to sustain the military of the president in Burundi, responsible for the carnage. Does it make any sense to you that multilateralism should be funding carnage? It makes no sense to me. It's certainly not part of the responsibility to protect. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.